Cool. So we're looking at the challenge, the last uh, task from the uh, basketball curly quote basket quote colon quote ball quote curly lab in phase three curriculum here. So this is did you all have a similar one in your pre-work for JavaScript?
It was in the part one or the first phase,
Okay.
object ball.
Yeah. That used
Yeah.
to be in pre-work, like you had to finish that before you could even start the class. But this is kind of a redo of the Ruby version of it. So it still exercises a lot of good stuff. So it's cool to see. And so basically, what we're looking at is we've got the big old. Does it give you the data structure there? I'll look at it. Um, Actually, let me clone it down. I haven't cloned it down yet. Sorry. It's been a scattered morning. So we're looking at this average rebounds by shoe brand function. That's going to take that big data set and calculate the average number of rebounds for players who wear a particular shoe brand, and it'll print out a message for each brand instead of returning it using the following format. And it's going to be a float with two decimal places. Great. Cool. So can you talk a little bit about the challenges you came up against with this one?
So I just kind of like got really confused when I was accessing, like I wasn't sure how to structure because you have to organize brand
Mhm.
and then you have to add the stats for the brand of the shoe. And then I just wasn't sure how to tackle the whole issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I
um,
didn't go very far on that one.
that's cool. That's cool. Let me find where I have it in there. So great. So we have our data structure here. Let me keep that open. Look at the other stuff. So many windows. It's a bad idea. Keep one window open. Go back to the problem there. Great. So we've got our. So let's talk about the bits and pieces that we need for this. So we've got our data structure, and it is a dictionary. They call them in Python. It's an object basically. It's a dictionary that has two sets of data in it with from two keys, the home team and the what is away? Yeah, away team. Each of those is an object, and that object has information about the team, like the team name and the team colors. Um, and then it has an array under the player's key that has an array of all the player objects. The player objects have a bunch of fields in them: name, number, position, points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, steals per game, blocks per game, career points, age, height in inches, and shoe brand. So we are looking to get the um, average rebrands by shoe brand, average rebounds by shoe brand. Um, so what pieces of information do we need to calculate that number?
Points, no, rebounds per game, issue brand,
Yeah.
right?
So the two, so we have a set of shoe brands, right? Those brands look like Nike, Adidas, Nike, Adidas, Nike, Puma, Nike, Adidas, Jordan. Great. So we've got a set of four brands, and we want to somehow, for each one of those brands, get uh, rebounds per game. Let me read that again. Calculate the average number of rebounds should be rebounds per game for players. So the numbers we need to look at are so for each brand, we need to find all the players that wear that brand. And then from that list of players, we need to get the rebounds per game from all of those. And then we need to find the average of that set of numbers. And then we need to do that for each one of the brands. Cool. So tell me a little bit about what you tried and what was catching you up there.
So first I created empty dictionary called stats, but I feel like not looking back at it, like I think I should have, I don't know, maybe that's not the way to do it. But then I did iteration. So for player in players, because I have a variable called players that has all the players informations. And then if player shoe brand is not in the stats.keys, so I was gonna put the brand name into the dictionary that I created and then add the numbers, the rebounds per game inside the dictionary, but I just got lost. Like I wasn't sure how to do that. So I think there's another way, like more simple way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
Despite the Python motto, which is odious, there's only one way to do it. There are so many ways to do it.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing your screen so we can kind of talk through what you've got and
I didn't go very far though, but I'm happy to
we
share.
can do it from scratch. That's totally good.
Okay. It says I can't share.
Oh,
Post disabled.
security. I trust you all. Go for it. You can do it now.
Share screen.
No one's gonna be sharing pictures of their butts or anything. You're all good. All right. Cool. So
Yeah. So this is my variable that I declared.
cool. And so the players is a list of all the players, or
Yes, list of everyone. So players, home players plus away players.
big fan of that. Great.
Make it simple.
So basically, we have a list of bring it up again. So we have a list of player objects, and that looks like the important parts are in each object there is a rebounds per game key and a shoe brand key. So those are the two things that we care about. The rest of the object is superfluous. Cool. So let's talk about different strategies to do this. I like what you were starting with. Stats. So what is tell me what your intention for that variable is.
So I was gonna see like I was gonna check the shoe brand in each player's stat. And if the shoe brand is not in the stats as a key, I was going to add it.
Awesome.
And then add the rebound per game value accordingly. And then at the end of the iteration, I was gonna do the average. Or after I iterate through all the players, then I was going to like calculate the average per player.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't sure how to like do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this is great. I love the way you're thinking here. So can you have it show us, or is it erroring out? The object has no attribute append. Okay, cool. So how do we add a key to a dictionary in Python?
With the square bracket?
Yeah, that is definitely one way to do it for sure. Browser was freaked out. Yeah. So append is I don't have all the Python methods loaded into my brain, but append is going to be adding something to the end of something, right? Like a string or an array or something. Does Python use append for arrays, or is it still push? Python uses some weird backwards
And
language. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm learning Dutch on the side, and now I understand a lot more about why Python is the way it is. um, cool. So, what we want to do is, so there's two two ways, two common ways I think that we're going to be adding stuff. We can use that bracket notation. I think it also has. Let me look it up. Um, yeah, it also has an add function that lets you add key value pairs. I think I like your idea of going with the bracket notation first and seeing what that does. So actually, can you go to your command line there and uh, is it Python or IRB that we're using for the command line stuff? If you just type Python at the command line, does that
Yeah.
bring up a prompt for you? Perfect. Cool. So I'm not a Python programmer. I have taught Python in the past and I've used it. Um, I am I don't use it regularly though. So one thing that I will often do when I am working with a language that I don't have fully baked in is instead of trying to like figure everything out in my program, I'll often open up a little shell like this, or even in JavaScript, I'll open up one of the like the command prompt. So here's where I can play with the language without having to worry about everything else going on in my program. So let's play around with dictionaries a little bit. So let's just add let's just do what you did there. Say stats equals brackets to make ourselves a dictionary. And now if you just type stats, it should show you that empty dictionary again. Perfect.
Mhm.
So now we know what's in it. So let's add so let's just make up a brand with a number. So let's add a key for say Nike and add a number. Say the average thing is 8 this time.
Like this.
Yeah, that's a good way. Cool. And now if we look at stats again, great. Then let's add one for Adidas is 12. Cool. If we look at stats again, cool. So now we know what that looks like, right? That's our dictionary there. Um, and of course in the program, instead of using the string, you'd be like you have now, you doing the player shoe brand. That's perfect. Cool. So that's one for each of them. But we know we're going to have multiple values for each one of those, right?
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about ways that we could manage that in our new object here.
Mhm.
Or I guess if I can roll it back one level, if so we know that for each one of those brands, we're going to have multiple values, right?
Yes.
Um, what kind of thing might we want to use to just keep a set of values or a list of values? So if we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and we want to keep those in a variable, what data structure would we use for that?
List.
Yeah, a list or an array, depending on what language you're in. Cool. So we know that for each one of those keys, we're probably going to want a list of numbers, even if there's only one, or even if there's none. So let's clear out the object again. Just do stats equals curly brackets again. Because if we wanted to add a number to the way we have it now, we might have a hard time. So
Mhm.
Um, let's add our first number for Nike again, knowing that we are going to have more than one value in here. What's a strategy we might want to try?
So make it a list.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, totally. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Awesome. If we look at stats, cool. So now the key for Nike has a list or an array um, as the value of that key. And let's think about how we would add a second value to Nike. So say we have 7, or let's add 6. Let's add 6 to that. How would we add that to that list?
Use append to this.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
and
And
then
depending our value. Yeah, 10 is great. And so let's look where stats look like.
oh
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome. So now do we have a better idea of like what the shape of that object is going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, so I feel like we've explored this enough to get a general feel for it. Let's go back to the code and see if we can make this happen in the code. So I love that you have the stats there. That's great. For player and players, great. If the shoe brand is not in stats keys, cool, we can do that. What do we want to set? So in the case that it doesn't exist there, how would we set it up like we had before?
So stats. Stats. Wait, stats. Shoe brand? No.
Yeah, and if you want to break it down the way you had it before, I think that's a good way. So back up to before you started typing stats here. And this is again one way to do it. So you've got your shoe brand pulled out into a variable there. Perfect. Let's just get rid of line 235.
35.
Yeah. Cool. So here, so what do we want to add to stats after we get the shoe brand?
The key. We want to add the key.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, let's keep the shoe brand the way it is so we have that easily available.
okay.
So on the next line, let's start working with stats. Yeah. So what's the key we want to throw in there?
I'm sorry.
You're all right. So what did we add down? Yeah, down there.
So stats to add shoe brand.
Yeah, what's the key that we're working with?
So then shoe brand.
Yeah, and let's not put it in quotes because that's going to add the key shoe brand.
Oh,
We want the key to be, yeah, the value of that. Perfect.
I
Um,
know.
and so instead of adding the actual value here, this is just the case where the shoe brand isn't in it yet, right? So if the shoe brand is not there, let's just set up an empty list for it. So let's do set that to an equal. Great.
Okay.
And now we'll go down back. I'm going to complain about Python's indentation thing a lot, but it's hard to talk about, I think. You can't say close off that statement. So yeah, you are in the right place there. And so now here's where we can add our thing to the list. So what would that look like?
We'll be pulling the rebound per game
Yeah.
for the player
Yeah. So we're going to want to do that append like we did down with the Nike one. So what are we appending to?
to stat this.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's going to be our list.
Append. Okay. Steps. And
I think we have show brand there instead of shoe brand.
oops.
Uh,
And
cool. So, and what are we appending?
player and rebound per game.
Yeah, perfect. Rebounds per game. Yeah. Cool. And at this point, let's just go back up one layer and let's just print out stats and see what we get. So go. I'm sorry, it's hard to talk about. On line 237,
237.
we will back out one. So shift, yeah, and we'll just print out stats. And let's run this and see what we get. And down in the command, you can Control D to get out of that. Yeah.
We have to call this, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. So is that look like something that's useful?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So do you have how do you feel about how we put this together? I guess.
Good.
Everything kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. And this is again one of many ways to do it. And I'm a big fan. So great. So we have our stats array. So what do we want to do with each thing there?
We have to come up with the average.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So we can do that after line 237 because we've got our thing there. So here is the next. So before we code anything, let's talk about what this might look like. So yeah, talk about just without worrying about the coding terminology, what procedure you'd like to follow to get those averages.
So we would have to get the numbers and then divide by the number of the number, the length of the number.
Yep.
Get the average and replace with the average.
Yeah, and this is actually it's just asking us to print it out, so we can just do that on the fly without having to store it, right? Cool. So how are we going to get each brand?
If we iterate through, wait, no. We can access with bracket notation.
Yeah. So how, I guess, so we need to iterate over the keys. The I think I just said it. we need to iterate over each of the brands, right? So what's I think you already have looked at that in your code previously. What's a good way to iterate through those?
Like brand.
Yeah.
And then iterate through the numbers.
So we want to. So actually, let's talk about this a little bit. So let's just print brand here and see what we're actually looking at when we're iterating through that object.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's in my brain too. Awesome. Great. So each for brand in stats, brand is going to be that key. Great. So we can get that list of numbers by accessing stats brand, right? So let's do that and just
Oh, I think yeah.
yeah.
So sorry, I'm moving slow.
No, you're perfect.
Divided by length.
Divided by like Python is so backwards. Yes. And stats the length of what? Yeah.
So that's the average.
Yeah. So let's just print that out and see what we get.
Oops. Stats. No, wait, stats brand.
Yeah, that's right. And what's the error saying? Um, unsupported operand on what? For list and int. Oh, I know what it is. So you're trying to divide a list by an integer there. So what do we actually want to get instead of what do we want that numerator to be? Because that's just the list itself.
You want it to be the sum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Python does have a sum function. Yes. So you can just say sum brand.
Oh,
That's brand.
like this?
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
And this line right here, just on a little tangent, this line right here is why Python is not an object-oriented language. In an object-oriented language, what would you expect this line to look like? Like in JavaScript. How would you get the length of a list in an object-oriented language like JavaScript?
mhm.
Oh, dot length.
Yeah, because the list is the object and length is the property or method on the object. So if Python was a real object-oriented language, instead of a language that has some object orientation bolted onto it, you would say statsbrand.length or statsbrand.sum or statsbrand reduce into a sum. Instead, sum and length are just functions. It's functions that just hang out. Yeah, grinds my gears. It grinds my gears. But it works. So rule one, like it or not. Let's see what that does for us.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. So we've got some numbers here, right? That first one is a great example of floating point math on a computer. But it's giving us the averages that we're looking for. So let's go back and look at our requirements here. So our requirements say, so the function should print out a message for each brand using the following format. We want the brand and then a colon and then the average printed out as a float with 2 decimal places. So let's start out from there. So let's start printing it in the format that it wants, and then we'll worry about the details as we get there.
Okay.
And we can probably just use a formatted string on line 240 for that.
What do you mean?
With the what do they call it? Python? The it would be a template literal in JavaScript. With the string with the F, I forget what the real word for it is. You know, you were doing it before in your previous code.
Oh, like this.
Yeah. So in there, we need to we want the brand colon and then the average. Yeah, so let's see what that looks like. Cool, we're very close. So we want each one of those numbers to be a decimal, a float with 2 decimal places. So we want that first one to be 7.05, 5.46, 5.70, and 3.80. What are some ways to do that?
Parse float. um,
I used like colon dot 2f
Hmm.
after average.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the curly bracket.
Oh, like 2 Fs?
Dot 2f. No, just two, the number 2,
Oh,
colon, the number 2, colon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like this?
Yeah. And I think you have to import it. You have to import math at the top. And then it should work. Actually, no, it needs to be inside the semicolon, or the inside the curly brace, sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
there you go. Yeah. Oh,
shoot.
it's dot 2f, sorry. You had it right first time. No, it's colon dot 2f.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Super
Okay.
clear.
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Go.
Perfect. Yeah. So that
Okay.
that colon is an indicator to Python that you're going to be formatting the string with that's part of the F thing. And so if you had a number before that, so put like 2.2f in there and see what happens.
2.2F?
Yeah, now run that and see what that looks like. Oh, nothing. It's not doing what I thought. So regardless, it would, if it was a larger number, it would take that down to 2 places. I think I might be lying. But that dot 2f says after the decimal place on a floating point number, only do 2 decimal places.
Okay.
Oh, cool. And I think that satisfies the requirement. Yeah, double check. I think that's everything.
Do you have to have it in a dictionary or?
The specs just say print it out. So
I'll print it out.
yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, and that exercise is like pretty much the lab could be just that exercise, I think. Everything else uses something like that. Awesome, cool. What kind of questions do we have about this?
Saki, can you run the test? Because I don't think it'll pass.
Hmm.
Yeah, mine's failing too.
I think it's because if you look at the dictionary with
Oh,
the brand. No, if you look at the dictionary, the first part with the brand and like the list, it's not showing the correct. Like if you look on the terminal side, like if you scroll up there,
Is it not showing the right numbers?
it's not. Yeah, it's adding weird. Oh, did you clear it? If you go up further, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here. Do you see where the Nike? It only has 2 items in the list. It should be like 7, I think.
Huh.
oh,
Yeah. I think it's because there's no else in the if. So it's like if it's not in there, that's not doing anything else, right?
Also, the
oh, it's a,
if is only for setting up that initial the initial empty list. So we're saying if that list isn't in there, put the list in there, and then either way, we're appending the player thing. Can you at the top of your 4 or like after line 234, can we just print out player?
234.
Yeah, just print player to make sure that we got everything we need. So is that all the players?
It should be. I used this variable in other.
So there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players altogether. That looks like 12. Let's print out yeah, let's just uncomment line 240. Double clicking on that will not do anything for me, but Let's just print out the stats again and see what those stats are. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That seems like all of them there. So are we not calculating the average correctly?
No, it's like they're being put in the wrong. Like Nike should have 7.
Nike should have 7.
There's only 2.
Oh my.
They're just being put in the wrong spots.
Shoe brand. Weird.
Would it have to do with line
I see.
239?
Yeah,
Where you
it's
say stats shoe brand and not stats player shoe brand?
exactly. That's exactly it. And in fact, let's refactor this a little bit. So move line 237 up one and outdent it one. You can just do option up arrow and that'll move it. Yeah, and then outdent it or move it in one. Sorry. There, perfect. So now we have shoe brand there. So now we can replace on line 237, we can just replace that with shoe brand. Perfect. And so now we're consistently using that variable in those 3 places. Awesome. Cool. Great catch. Let's see if that works. Let's just run that test.
Oh, the test. Oh yeah, it has more. Wait.
Nice.
Failed.
Let's see.
It wants 2 spaces after the colon. I think that's what it's
Oh, disgusting.
that's what happened to me.
That's not how colons work in a modern typesetting environment.
It should work now. No.
Gross.
Is it because I'm not giving space after the average?
What is it looking for? A certain,
I think is it looking for?
it's just looking for new. Is it just looking for new lines after that? It looks like it wants it all on one line. That doesn't make any sense.
I don't think so because mine shows them on different lines and it passes it.
Okay. So let's see. What is it looking for? Assert that blah 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 equals.
Sure.
Is it looking for 2 lines after each one?
2 lines after.
On that top arrow line, it looks like there's 2 line returns after each one. Is that right? Oh, I don't know. Okay, throw a new line on the end of that printf. Let's see if that's what it's looking for. Actually, let me look at the test and see see what it's actually looking for. Basketball test.
I have felt like the tests this phase have been very finicky.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the last few phases.
So to be 100% honest, stuff like this should not be printing things out. It should be returning values, right?
Yeah, I had that problem. I was returning things to the first lab and it just wasn't working until I changed it to print.
Yeah, I feel like their intentions are good, but I feel like having you print something out instead of returning is just like treating you like you don't know what a return value is after 6 weeks of using them. So we have the right values in there, right though?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. As far that passes, right?
Yeah,
I
think so.
And yeah, this is my philosophy with these tests in general. Our purpose here is to learn the stuff, not to pick all the little testy things. So if you're getting the right results, whether or not it passed the tests, that's totally fine. Like, we want you to learn the thing, not pass this garbage test.
It's a pass.
I think it's because it wants the I don't know. Actually,
I'm not sure the
maybe it's
exact
because the
problem.
brand is in the. I have it as like 2 separate strings.
Really?
No, never mind.
I have my code almost
mine looks exactly the
exactly.
same.
Mine looks almost exactly like Saki's, and it's working.
Yeah, and like it looked. So I'm looking at the test and it says captured out equals Nike : space the number new line Adidas : space. Oh, can you print out your value again? I bet. Oh, that looks like it should.
The /n was not necessary.
/n is not necessary. It's doing Nikes, Adidas, Puma Jordan. Nika City is Puma Jordan. That is exactly the same as what they're looking for in the test. I don't understand why it wouldn't pass without the /n.
Did you maybe like reverse the
Oh,
order of away and home team or something like that? Would that throw
yeah,
just enough
I mean,
because I'm
error in there?
the same number. Yeah. So the test is looking for.
I
And
think maybe
take
because I was printing the stats.
4.93 new line.
I
8
thought,
AS.
okay.
There it
So
goes.
it was because I was printing the stats as well. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh,
That's a bad test. I apologize.
Oh gosh.
So bad.
if
Yeah.
we were returning it, it wouldn't be a problem.
Returning it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
That's what tests usually look for. Fortunately, there's a curriculum open office hours in about an hour that I'll be going to. So maybe I'll mention that. There's a lot of other things I want to talk about too. Awesome. We passed the test. We did good. We got the grade. But more importantly, we have a better idea of how this stuff works. Yeah. What questions do you have about this whole process?
Is this like it seems like this is very, very important stuff
Yes.
to understand. If it's anything like the JavaScript phase and the React phase, like this object and array methods and all of that stuff seemed super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're going to be, getting data from an API or getting data from a database, or you're going to be getting, in a real application, you're going to be getting complex data structures like this. And, sadly enough, the bulk of our job as programmers is turning complicated data structures into information that the user can see. That's like half of our job. And so being able to understand the shape of these data structures and how to turn that shape into a different shape that we can show someone else is a huge part of what we do. So yeah, getting comfortable with going through arrays of objects, of lists of arrays of strings and whatnot, and turning them into like a summary for some executive that likes numbers is going to be really important. Yeah. So yeah, I think you showed great understanding of like all the bits and pieces. It's just a matter of practice to like get them all together. Awesome. What other questions do we have about this?
Not specifically about this, but you're talking about our jobs being, wrangling with complex data structures. At what point during this, education learning process, getting a job, should we start like seriously worrying about the computational complexity of our code?
So, my 3 rules, right? Number 1, make it work. Number 2, be able to understand it. Number 3, make sure it's efficient. 3 is generous. It should be like 10. Especially so the level that we're working with here with JavaScript, with Python, these are all interpreted languages, which means we write our code. When we run it, it gets turned into some sort of bytecode or whatever that gets run on a runtime. That is an order of magnitude or more slower than writing a program in C or something, or whatever that compiles into a binary that gets run on the computer. If we were very concerned about, especially like in Python or any server-side language, if we were super concerned about that efficiency, we would be writing a C module and plugging it in. For the purposes of pretty much everything in this program, unless something is just like, unless something is like you run it and it just stops, complexity is not a huge issue. It's good to know about the basics of big O notation and that complexity. And for sure, they're good interview questions. People will definitely ask you about those. But even in the real world, complexity, like it's good to have a feel like, oh, I could use this instead of that because it's slightly more efficient, and I'll just make it a habit. But don't get hung up on it. And especially because the saying is premature optimization is the root of all evil, because it's easy to go in and say like, oh, I know that JavaScript uses a quicksort instead of an insertion sort depending on the length of the array. So if I make sure all my arrays are this size, it'll be blah blah blah. If it turns out like that array manipulation is 0.01% of your runtime, and there's some other thing that's running in a loop 10,000 times a second that you could optimize, don't worry about this part. Profile your code, and profiling means running your code. There's programs called profiles that tell what parts of your code are running the most often, and that's where you want to look at, if it's a problem. If you're just making a small app for yourself or doing a little project here, you can be super sloppy with efficiency, and it literally does not matter at all. Efficiency is going to matter at scale when you're processing billions of lines of data from a database or handling hundreds of millions of requests on a web server or something. So yeah, it's good to know. It's good to be able to talk about and understand what other people are talking about. I mean, I've been a developer for a very long time, and I can probably count the number of times on two hands the number of times I've had to actually worry about that in a production environment.
All right.
And part of that's just because you develop a good feel for stuff. Part of it is like a lot of the time that's not your job. Like sometimes we'll have like that'll be a senior engineer or someone else that's like, oh, this part I'm going to pull out and tweak to make it faster. But again, it's good interview fodder, and it's definitely good to have a general sense of, and you get that through practice. I like the very first, like I used to program when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old on an Apple II computer in 1984, and I thought it would be super fun to program, and I had no concept of anything. I was like, oh, I'm going to do like a little robot fighter game, and I like made these 1000 by 1000 by 1000 arrays, which seems infinitesimal now, but on an Apple II with 8K of memory or whatever, that just doesn't work at all. And trying to loop through all of those locations, like there are clearly better ways of doing it that my 13-year-old self did not know. But understanding like, oh, if I can look at this data set and just pull out these four things instead of looping through the 100,000 combinations, that's probably going to make me have a better time. That said, if you brute force it and it still works at a reasonable amount of speed, great, leave it that way until you want to go through and fix it up. But back then I did not have a general sense of anything at all in the world. So, but as you program and you make mistakes and you do code reviews and talk with folks who do have experience, you develop a feel for it. You can definitely like study algorithmic complexity and optimization and all that, but it really doesn't sink in until you make mistakes and have to fix it or have to fix someone else's mistakes. So yeah, short version, don't worry about it too much, but it's good to know.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. This has been old man nature time. What other questions do we have? Are we feeling pretty good about this stuff in Python? Kind of, yeah. Just a matter of practice. If you're not, and like to be honest, I struggle with it being inside out moon language. Like I'm used to having methods on the ends of objects that do things instead of having a function floating around doing it. I have a bigger problem with Python people who are like, it's the best object-oriented language ever. It's not. Use the tools that you have in front of you. They're good. Yeah, it's just a matter of practice. I don't have as much practice with Python in the last decade as much as I'd like to. So yeah, practice enough to get comfortable with it and you'll be good. Yeah, but the principles are the same. If you're comfortable with JavaScript, there's not really any, like there's a few peculiarities to Python. There's like list comprehensions, which like it's just a map, just use a map. There's a few things that are like peculiar to Python, but none of the concepts are anything new. Everything is something that you've either done or that exists in Python in JavaScript. So yeah, it's just a matter of syntax and getting used to the way the language looks. And that's just practice. Awesome, cool. Any last questions before we close shop here? Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for going through this with me. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any more questions, give a shout out on the channel or Discord, and I'll post this video up in the usual places. Awesome.
Thank you.
See you all.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.